Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today I'm going to be doing a bit more work on my 20,000 bricks under the sea cabinet. More specifically, another link between two levels, this crab vessel fishing on the surface and something in the depths that's a lot more mysterious. But first, some amendments from last time in the cabinet where we had our lovely new red submarine. One idea that I really liked that I haven't actually been able to reflect was having kind of bubbles coming out of the back of these propellers by putting one by one studs into them, kind of in a stack. And that would have been really good, except for the fact that they just don't connect to the back end of these propeller pieces. You would have thought the dimensions would be right, but they, well, just don't go. So unfortunately, although that one would have got a bedoing, it hasn't qualified because it didn't actually happen. One that did happen, though, is this one. I already had the torpedo being fired, but it was just to add one by one round brick to its length to make it look like the bit that was sticking out was just the front of it, on the one on the back there, and the bit that was inside the vehicle is now visible because obviously it has been fired. And I thought that was a really subtle but excellent improvement. I love the easy ones, but that's made it look a lot better as well. So that definitely gets a bedoing. Fantastic. Then we also had the naming competition. And the two sort of main sort of groupings of name suggestions fell into a play on the original set being Seabed Scavenger. So we had Seabed Speedster, Sea Rocket, Sea Rari, which I quite liked, kind of like Ferrari, Crimson Cruiser, Sea Scorcher, Sea Fury, Seabed Slicer, Seafloor Racer, Shipwreck Racer, and things with red in front of them. So the Red Manatee, the Ruby Ranger, the Red Racer, the Red Sailfish, the Red Defender, and the Red Snapper. Oh, well, I think my favourite red one is Red Snapper because that's a real fish and quite a tasty one at that. But then again, I do like the pun on the original set name of Seabed Scavenger. So I think I'm going to go with, because we went with the Ferrari sort of angle, the Seabed Speedster. I think that really covers its very fast kind of look, the fact that it's a Ferrari, and the fact that it's coming from that Atlantis set. So, if you were the one who said that, here is your bedoing. Wonderful. Right, on to today then. So, I've long had the idea of linking this crab boat with the depths because it's pulling crab pots up, of course, full of crab. Yummy. And, well, it was an obvious link to have one of those pots actually on the surface of the level below, waiting to be pulled up, full of crab. And that is the main reason why actually when I started this cabinet brought this ship down so it could be on this level because, well, the link is obvious, isn't it? So I've added the first part of a buoy, or a buoy if you're American, to the surface there. And I've got this second part of that here, which I've put a rare earth magnet into the inside of both halves. So I can kind of clip that onto the underside there and have that as being the next pot that's going to be hauled up by the guy with the hook to be put on the rack and then emptied via the sorting table into the hold where they're all trying to escape and then stacked on the back next to the sailor who's having a bit of a hard time keeping his lunch down. Anyway, that is one of my favourite builds, I think, that crab boat. But you'll see the other end has got some official Lego string on. It's actually the remaining section I had from our quayside buildings, that green... Oh, it wasn't the green crane, actually. What was it? Oh, it was the penguins, of course, hanging off the hoist there. But it's been severed. It's been cut. But what by? So I thought something from the deep that was very unhappy with the crabs being, taken in this way would have yanked this thing down, pulled down the buoy underwater, snipped it, and then let go. And now all that's left is this sort of dangling rope, which is another good link between the two layers. But really, we need to now do the rest of the scene, which will involve another one of those crab pots being, well, emptied, but not in the way that the fisherman had intended. So the only question is, who's doing the emptying? Good. Well, if something is going to be picking up a very heavy and robust looking crab pot like this and, well, slicing through it, it's going to have to be something very big and powerful. But fortunately, through all of my brick hauls over the weeks, months and years, I've been collecting absolutely loads of pieces for loads of undersea brick-built beasties from historic sets, kind of as a mini collection. Yeah, I know, I've got a problem. But there were loads of really good creatures as part of Aqua Raiders sets and the Atlantis sets, and I want to have at least one of those on each of the 3 undersea levels of my cabinet. Well, probably actually more than that, more than one. But there's been great anglerfish, tiger sharks, giant crabs, giant lobsters, and my favourite is the giant squid. That I will definitely be having probably at the very bottom level, I imagine, in my cabinet. So if you think about who's going to be in this particular scene with a crab pot trying to rescue loads of little crabs, well, it just has to be one of those giant crabs, doesn't it? And the Atlantis giant crab was, well, not so giant at about this big. So I decided to get the huge giant crab from the Aqua Raiders set 7774, Crab Crusher from 2007, where I think the Crab Crusher must be referring to the heavily armed yellow submarine, Quelle Surprise, that it's yellow, which does seem to be very, very well suited to attacking something as robust as this. But this is the, well, creature. Not really the baddie in my mind, just somebody who's about their merry business on the undersea levels. But he's very big, very appropriate for manhandling something like this, I think you'll agree. But also very beautiful. I absolutely adore these printed carapace pieces in this dark green, and all the detail around his face with all these little teeth, and his eyes are in there somewhere, you can just sort of see. And he looks very sort of pointed and horny and carapacey and very armoured. So I think he is absolutely perfect for this scene. So what do I want to do with him? Well, I want to have him essentially with this in mid sort of tear, so he's kind of rendering it apart. So I'm going to have bits of netting sort of being ripped and torn. Obviously we've got the buoy already being severed and just floating on its own on the surface. All of these guys running off kind of in every direction, having been released like that. And then maybe even use some of these smaller axle pieces kind of to represent bits that have been snapped off it, and that can all be on that section of sea floor near our what do we call it? The seabed speedster, that's it, which might need to be moved. But first of all, I want to decorate my crab, because I figure a crab this size is been around for quite a while. He wasn't born yesterday, was he? So I think he's going to be absolutely caked with all sorts of bits of growth and stuff all over his big shell, and maybe even on his crab claws as well. So I figured maybe he'd have very similar growths to the ones that were on all of the rocks in our cabinet, with little bits of sea life and maybe even smaller sea creatures sort of living on his shell. And he doesn't mind, because he's a massive crab. Why is he bothered? So I have a nice spiral shell on that front, and maybe something like that. Yeah, and we could add even more, but I think that's a good sort of smattering. So yeah, that gives him a bit more age. I mean, I've got loads of these, so I really could go to town, but I don't want to distract too much from the scene. But the other thing I wanted to do was to make him, well, stand a bit better. So I'm going to use one or two of these round bricks in a sort of sand colour on the underside, because these legs really do start to sort of bend and bow under his weight, and I want them to look in a really dynamic scene. So I think I'll have him on one of those bricks, so I can arrange them in a nice order and not have them needed to support his weight. So that is another thing. And then I also want to improve on his legs, which do look a bit boring because they're just these sort of jointed kind of, I don't know, robot arm pieces. But there are two sorts of those, actually. There are these ones, which are very standard, that came in the original set. And then there's these ones, which work in exactly the same way, except for, you'll see, they've got these holes, which are sort of bar piece sized on them. So I could replace the middle sections of these legs, sort of 1, 2 on each of them, with these, and then be able to add a bit more detail. And what I thought I'd add is these, well, I think of them as chili peppers, but they're kind of animal horns really. But I've got loads of them in lime, in red, which probably wouldn't work. We do have a bit of red in the mouth, or even this spring green colour. So I've put some legs in the two colours that I think I'm choosing between. We've got the lime ones there. You see, it just adds a bit more sort of spikiness, a bit more defences to him, which I think he'd have in those colours. I'm going to probably do one side one colour and one side the other, so we can kind of see what it looks like and compare and contrast and see which one we want to go with. But that is what I'm going to do next. And then we can start focusing on that crab pot and the actual scene itself. Well, I haven't touched so many crab legs since I went to a seafood buffet, but yeah, here we are, 8 legs off and 8 new legs back on. And I think he's looking rather good. I do like these spines, definitely add a lot of interest. So we've got the lime on one side, trying to imagine that in the whole thing. Yep. Or we've got the spring green on the other side, trying to imagine that. And, well, I think I like both. This one kind of stands out more, but I think this one looks almost more natural. I don't know if it's sort of just going with that speckling colour on the dark green a little more or what, but what do you think? I just think that looks more under the sea than that. That looks a bit more planty to me. So I think I'm going to go with this side on both sides. Do tell me if you think I've made the wrong decision there and should go for lime. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to do that and then we'll get on with that pot. All right, so there's all the legs on with the same coloured spines. I just need to sort of bend these into a more realistic spread. So he looks like he's supporting his own weight and walking along a little bit. And if you get them just right, he can actually be supported in the upright position with his crabs in the air because he is a bit front heavy. But yeah, that's looking better, isn't it? I do like those. Yeah, I think I've made the right choice. So while I perfect those, I'm going to move on to the crab pot itself. And I want him, as I said, kind of wrenching it open to let all of... Oh, my Lord, look at poor Robin. To let all the vicious crabs out back to their homes and families. And it occurred to me that I could go even further than just using smaller Technic axle pieces. I could even use slightly angled ones of these connector pieces on the corner. So it kind of looks like this one has been bent up a little bit and this one's been bent up a load, and that will make it look really like it's been snipped in half, either both on the front or maybe one front, one back. So yeah, that looks quite good, doesn't it? So I think I'm going to include those. And then for the netting itself, this is what I used on the original ones on the boat. It isn't actually a Lego piece. I know, shock horror. But I thought it was important to get the look right rather than be completely faithful to only using real Lego. So this is actually from the garden. This is kind of some plant netting to keep birds off fruit. And I've just got some, well, very odd shaped sort of spare snippings of that. So this is probably very appropriately shaped actually, just a bit on the very end that I can kind of wrap around and have with bits now being torn and flapping in the, I was going to say breeze, but I suppose it'd be current, wouldn't it? And then what I used last time to kind of sew up one end, well, was a needle and thread actually. So I've got here a little bit of a vanity kit from a hotel room that I can use the black thread just to kind of sew up the untorn end in the original way, have the other end splayed open with all of these crabs escaping. And I thought just to make the scene really work, what I might do is use one of these modified plates in black with the axle hole on the side, so I can kind of mount that in one of these sections here and actually have it attached to one of these big black claws and therefore have it sort of held in quite an unnatural angle more firmly. Sort of mean that would be kind of attached to there or something like that, and that would mean that it would just be, well, held better in my cabinet for the scene to last a long time. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do a lot of playing around with all of that. Let's see what I can come up with. Well, that was quite therapeutic actually. I've used these pegs just to hold the netting in the rough position that I wanted it in, just so I could sew this seam just around and round and around and kind of in a knot, so it won't come undone if I'm careful with it. I've got that extra piece hanging out of one side to attach to a claw. Now I should be able to remove these and kind of pull it on fully onto the crab pot like a sock. And then I've changed those two bits for the original setup there, so it looks like it's been broken in half by some really powerful claws. So I think that will look good. So when this is pulled up, that's attached onto the crab, and then we've got little crabs everywhere spilling out of it, with a few still left in. Should look really good, I hope. All right, well, here on Shaky Hands Cam is my final scene. So I've got the crab pot attached to this claw down here, and I've put one of those inverted curved slopes on just to give it a bit more strength. But it looks at a very natural angle, kind of held at the bottom by the first claw on our right, and the second one has just sliced through that bit of bar, as well as all the netting, which is all coming up at all different sort of natural angles, even though it's not an official Lego piece. And then we've got loads of the crabs still stuck inside the crab pot, upside down and all the rest of it. But all the ones that have made it out so far are running in every direction. In fact, they should be going sideways, shouldn't they? I just realised. I'll do that when I put them in the cabinet for, well, cover basically, for some rocks or plants to hide under so they can't be got again. Not that the fishermen can see them, of course. So they'll be putting up an empty line that we did earlier on that buoy. And they won't be getting their delicious crab for your plate or mine. But yeah, I think that's a really fun scene. And a good way to incorporate one of these giant animals into our top level. I think the backstory behind this is there's something really weird going on with this sort of Bermuda Triangle-esque sort of area. Lots of shipwrecks, lots of mysterious goings on, mer people, giant monsters. It's kind of like a land that time forgot, but underwater. So yeah, that should be a really colourful scene against the tan sand colour that will be that setting for it. And it'll all stand out and look very visible. It will be behind, I think the best place for it is behind the sea tunnel. So this just happens to be happening whilst those divers are working on the construction. They haven't noticed. And we may have to move our new seabed speedster just to give him a bit of space. Maybe that's why he's firing the torpedo. Though, to me, I don't think the crab's done anything wrong. He's just helping out his little buddies. I mean, for all we know, these are her children. Ho 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 ho! Oh wow. Well, I've had that scene planned in my head, well, longer than I've even had the cabinet, and it's just amazing to see these things finally happen. A long time coming in the planning. But yeah, oh, that looks great. It's very, very clearly a huge crab. It's nicely camouflaged against all of the surroundings that are there, but also stands out enough that you can very much see it. I just love that late addition of the angled bits on the crab pot that are holding those smaller axle pieces, so it looks like it's been absolutely mauled into a different shape. And then the crabs standing out and escaping in the way they are. Really good. And there's still room for our seabed speedster, of course. I think I will have this whole level so packed and stacked that this won't seem too dense. Just things flying over other great big monsters when it's all finished. But in fact, I'll probably cram even more scenes in all of this space, to be honest. So yeah, you'll be really searching for all the interesting different things. But yeah, also the fact that we've got this string and this buoy almost leads you to the scene. You think, oh, crab boat, picking up a crab pot. Where's it going? Oh, it's been torn out and rendered apart by this lovely big beastie with his nice hairy legs. And I love the growths all over his carapace as well. It really fits in with all of the sort of colour scheme we've got elsewhere in the cabinets. Maybe I need to add even more. Let me know what you think. So yeah, that's a really nice scene, and probably the only huge beastie we'll have on this level. But we do have 2 more entire levels to go beneath this one. So there's plenty of room left for expansion in the cabinet. Next time when we come to the cabinet, I'm hoping to finish off this rock face. We can get our huge base back in, and then we'll really be able to celebrate this first level being largely complete. Yes. Oh, I do like that. Nice big sea tunnel, giant crab, seabed speedster. Awesome. I'm very happy. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And it just occurs to me, actually, that the crab that has stolen a hammer down here from the workman working on the sea tunnel may well have been the first one to get shaken loose from this pot. And he's just made the most progress of all along the sea floor. Who knows? Anyway, if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, I don't know what we're doing. We'll be doing a build either in a city or in this deep sea cabinet. And then on Wednesday, a brick haul. But until then, see you! You know, that crab is about the right size to consider eating in real life. Nom 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 nom.